All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. McIntosh. I'm principal at Cherokee. I know there's a lot of other things that you see me doing. Recently, I was serving with summer school, and we were in this building, actually. So some of you I had the opportunity to work with for summer school for high school. So knowing that we've got 48 hours, getting ready to start another year of excellence, I wanted to be clear that we set you up today with just some best practices. I know all of us are professionals in the room. And then I know that also, too, we have so many things that are on our plates. We have so many various respective roles that we serve in. And so today is just an opportunity for you to reflect and to think about critically where you are as it relates to some of the organizational practices and time management that you currently employ in your role, and then also how to best set yourself up to maximize the time that you're given. I know we can always think of someone who is a procrastinator and gets nothing done, but then at the other side of things, we see there are some that we can really see like, oh my goodness, they own multiple businesses, or they teach these sections, they coach, they do so many different things even in the community, and how do they do it all when we're all given the same amount of time? Okay, so today's title is It's Time to Manage Your Time. So we're looking at 6 best practices that are designed to help you to manage your time so that your time does not manage you. So an intentional purpose. So for me, I always like to be clear at the front of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so this professional development seminar is simply designed to provide us with some 6 best practices to effectively manage your time and also remain organized throughout the school year. Additionally, educators will have the opportunity to engage in some self-reflection. So it's not going to be me talking for the whole 90 minutes. It's definitely going to be time for interaction. We're getting ready to launch and do an exercise that's going to call upon you to think about some of your current organizational practices, and then perhaps you'll get to kind of see a score, and that'll provide you with some categories of perhaps some areas of growth for you, and then also where you're really strong, okay? So again, being able to engage with colleagues, I can always remember being a part of professional development, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, are they ever going to stop talking? Or, it's just kind of like, where is it? What is in it for me? And so I want to be able to provide you with that so that you're able to add to your toolkit. We all have respectable roles of service that we are currently in, and so knowing that we want to maximize our opportunity each and every day, especially for our students. So real quick, the reality of managing your time. Let's look at this photograph right here. We've got evidently a young lady that looks like she's a professional. Based on the image, she has her computer, she's got a tablet, coffee, of course, whatever your pick may be. But she's got a couple of cell phones, looks like maybe a report, maybe a journal full of notes. So let's turn and talk at your table. Does the photograph depict the reality of our lives as educators? How so? Or maybe not. Take a moment and talk amongst yourselves. Turn and talk at your table. How does this perhaps align with the life of an educator?
Right. They're still giving her enough space.
So, Coach Polk, I'll talk to you. In what ways does it feel like there is an alignment with an educator's life when we look at that picture there?
Well, as far as mine goes, it's just like the same with playing dodgeball. I have one team or one person, hey coach, this person's shooting, this person's not doing it.
Aha.
Coach, how am I? I'm trying to answer that question. Then they ask me, coach, shoot what?
Yeah.
I didn't even get to see
Yeah.
who.
Yeah.
And if we're playing like kickball or something like that, coach, this is blah blah blah. He's not doing this right. This person's doing this right. Coach, is that a strike or a ball? I don't know. I'm talking to 3 different people. But that was mainly, I think that I got a lot better with that. I can't remember who gave me this little notepad to like just keep track of like little infractions that happen and then take care of them later because
Yeah.
we don't have time right now.
Yeah.
So that helped a lot. I think it might have been Miss Brown.
Okay.
She was able to
Okay.
not lose track of the writer. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's real. That's real. Oh, it's every day. Yeah. Well, let's bring it back. I want to call on a couple to share. And so just maybe each table share out a couple of what you discussed at your table, and what ways does the photograph really reflect the reality of what we do each day. Mr. Cadlin.
Sure. So we first took it as ourselves, as I think you intended, where it almost feels as though there's not enough going on in the background. Dealing with the number of students that we do and things, it should be maybe a little bit more in our face at times. It should be depicted that way, but then we kind of segued into how students probably feel this exact same way. And having things at home going on, having things in the classroom going on, all those things shoved at them, and them many times not having the techniques, hopefully we're going to learn today, that will help them and how we can pass that on to our students.
Well said. Well said. What about this table?
Just lots of information coming from different directions and from different people.
Mm-hmm.
Just stuff that's got to go here and there, and keeping it organized.
Very well.
My thought immediately was, especially if you have a family at home or you're a parent or something like that, is,
Yeah.
at least in my experience, it seems like I spend most of my time putting out fires
Okay.
instead of being organized and handling things in an orderly manner.
Yeah.
It's just like, what's burning right now? Because I
Yeah.
need to take
Yeah.
care of that.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Coach Falk, you gave the example as a PE educator. Give that to the team, how you said.
So when I gave him an example of when we're playing dodgeball. For one, I'll have a kid on my left saying somebody's cheating over here, or a kid on my right asking when they could go back in, and then somebody will get like the last person out, and I will see it say, "Coach, the game is over," or "We won," or "Who won?" And I'm like, I have no idea because I can't watch it
Yeah.
and answer these questions. And then it's like that with kickball. This person talking to me here, this talking to me here, and then there's somebody's asking me if it was a ball or a strike, and then did this person get out before that person scored and stuff like that. It just gets crazy sometimes.
So, and that's the life in coaching as well. And I know Coach Dawkins can allude to that as well. You have so many things that are competing. And so all of us, we all know what this image, because this probably has been us. I heard someone say, overheard them say, this is how I feel right now. And so, yes, like with 48 hours, knowing on the greatest year to come or to be here, just knowing that too, we're going to really engage in identifying some best practices on how, when this is our, sometimes our day, how can we really manage and be in the moment, and then also be able to take care of self as well. Okay? So what do we know about organization and time management? Let's think about that. What do we know? What are some things that we know as it relates to organization, being organized, and then also time management? You can look at it from the standpoint as a professional, maybe not just an educator, but in any respective role that you may serve in, or just in general. And then just go ahead and share out. What are some of the thoughts that you have? Yes.
I would think part of it starts with setting your priorities in your life, like
Yeah.
knowing what's most important, second important.
Prioritize, and we'll definitely get into that, and setting those, setting whatever those expectations are going to be for how you'll hammer, a multifaceted role of responsibilities. Someone else?
It takes effort. It's not going to just happen on its own. You actually have to work for it.
That power to go. Yes, intrinsic motivation. So within yourself, you've got to be able to say, yeah, I really missed it here. I've got so many competing deadlines. I need to do something to kind of get it so that I'm not in this predicament or set up like this again. I think too, after a game is over, perhaps if your team lost, looking at, again, how when we're facing some of these same challenges, how will we respond? What's going to be our replay, if you will, or how will we go again? Maybe someone else? Coach.
Like for myself, I like to show and let other people see what I'm actually out there doing I'll use basketball, for example. If I'm practicing at 5 o'clock p.m., I get there at 4 o'clock early.
Yeah.
To prep the gym, sweep the floor, prep the water. And I stay another hour afterwards, okay, in case I have some players, in which you will. Parents don't come pick up their kids. And then on game day, I do things the night before, early on. I'm never late for anything. And I do that because I very seldom want to tell my staff exactly what to do. I show them 2-3 days, I show them 4 or 5 days, and let them catch on to what I'm doing. So, and in the long run, that'll take some food off my table. So when I get to practice, I don't have to prep the water or sweep the floor. They've already done that. And that will let my players know how important it is. One of the very first things that I did when I became head coach a few months ago, I cleaned up and disinfected the locker room because we live in a locker room more than anything. So we have to treat that environment like it's our home, our restrooms. And I told them, if I come in there and there's some shoes or anything left in the locker room, I'm throwing them away. You know, because you just can't leave shoes around on the floor in your mama's house. And now they've caught on. They take that locker room, they take the restroom like it's their home life. And so I like to show everything before instead of just, you know, you do this, you do that.
Yeah.
You know, I let them see what I'm actually out there doing, what it takes to make the program important.
And that's modeling what we're expecting. And so hopefully today with what Coach Dawkins has reiterated, and as well as all of you, that, you know, ultimately too, we want to be able to own it. And, you know, I believe Dr. Mendenhall stated that very clearly last Friday. And a part of that ownership is, yes, we take an initiative in that, you know, we're modeling. And we're in role of modeling beginning Wednesday morning, because all of the students that we are yet to see, whether they're returning, we've had them before in previous years, whatever it might be, we're serving as that model. Are we prepared for class? Are we able to, you know, students are knowing what is expected of them. You know, we have our objectives up, we have our agenda ready, we've already planned, because our students, whether they're in kindergarten or not, they know when routines are not in place, or, you know, when things just are not quite right. We may think that first and second grade do not know, but I can tell you, rest assured, if you're not prepared for them, they know it. And so, you know, having a couple of, you know, lessons already ready to go, knowing that, you know, if in the aspect you wake up and you're not feeling well and you cannot get to campus, is there a plan already in place that's ready to go without anyone having any effort being to have to do other than to go and locate, and the whole day is ready to go? Are those things in place? And so when I talk about what do we know about organization and time management, I would just hope that those things would begin to come to mind. And so knowing that, you know, that's what's going to really help as you are moving forward. So I have a self-assessment here that I'm going to hand out, and I want you to just take a moment to complete that, and then we will have some further discussion. And so it's simply talking about prioritization of tasks and how we are organizing, you know, our lives, if you will. And I think sometimes too, it takes having data like this to really begin to start the conversation, because we may think ultimately that we have a lot of, you know, great organizational skills perhaps, or we're able to, you know, prioritize and move in a lot of different directions. However, we may also figure that, this is some areas I didn't know that I, you know, could really perhaps develop some new strategy or revise current strategy to really make the difference that I'm wanting to make, and to ensure that my success is maximized at all costs. And so, yes, you're welcome. Yes. And so it is the Likert scale. You'll grade yourself accordingly There are about 16 questions there. They're very simplistic, but 0 points for not at all. Rarely, you'll give yourself 2 points. Sometimes, you'll give yourself 3 points. Often, you'll give yourself 4 points. Excuse me, thank you. And for very often, you'll give yourself 5 points. So we'll take a moment to complete this. I think we can all attest that we wouldn't be in education if we couldn't handle number 4. If we couldn't handle number 4, I don't know if we should be getting ready for school at all. And especially with COVID-19 and every other thing that we've endured over the past couple of years for us interruptions.
We just said under here that we feel like it depends on the interruption. Like, I can handle kid interruptions very well.
Yeah.
Someone walks in my door, easy. When it's other things,
Oh yeah.
is when it's hard.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When it's like things I all want to work on at the same time.
And thinking you've got just a couple hours, and how can I make the most of this and work on to have that walking away feeling of accomplishment, to know, okay, I've got 6 things that they are completely extrapolated from one another. They are all distinctively different. How can I provide adequate time to each of those elements and still be effective at the end of it? That is a task at hand. You're right. And so then once you have kind of begun to walk through the list, there is, I know we all have that, how our students do us when we get something, we start flipping through. So on the page right behind there, if you're already finished, you can begin to add up your points from the assessment, and then that will begin to give you your rating scale of where you fall once you've completed those 16 questions. And by all means, engage in conversation with those at your table, just on perhaps what your findings are. Maybe there are some areas that you both have share some of the same point values as it relates to those responsibilities. But yeah, go ahead and count up your total. Got your calculator going, yeah.
Come on, Zavala.
Zavala likes accuracy. He likes accuracy.
I'm a math teacher. I can do 3, 6, 9, 10.
Okay. So
We want 85% of our teachers to have
I did. We just, yeah.
Sorry, bye. The good thing about this is you can flip out parts.
No worries at all. So did everyone, if you can, just quick show of hands, did everybody get a chance to complete? We're good? Okay. Let's turn to that next page and just turn it over. Let's look at the score assessment. For 0 to 30 points, the key takeaway there, it looks like it's time for change. Okay? It says the good news is that you've got a great opportunity to improve your effectiveness at work and your long-term success. However, to realize this, you've got to fundamentally improve your time management skills. Then you've got 30 to 45 points. Time to put in some work. So that's kind of the middle of the road. We've got an understanding of it. I kind of know that I've got some areas that I want to improve upon. I'm not quite there in a couple of areas, but I do have some strengths. Okay? And then the 46 or higher, you are right on track. I'm going to be honest with you. I serve in a lot of roles. with the district and just, responsibilities of taking things on to ensure that we're all successful, and knowing that, I would say too that I still have areas that I'm wanting to further, grow in, as far as, maintaining a schedule of so many different deadlines and tasks that are at hand. So I believe that if we're committing, when we see the data with where we fall, it just really gives you kind of a thought process to begin engaging in that self-reflection. And it may be a daily, task. I'm going to kind of try this, see how this works for a day or two, or see how this works for a week, when you're implementing a strategy to stay abreast of so many competing schedules, and then taking it from there. If you turn that page over, oh, yes.
So number 16,
Mhm.
I am stressed about deadlines and commitments.
Yes.
Is that considered a good thing then, that we're stressed in deadlines? Because
So-
I put very often for me.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
sound like a good
So,
thing.
so that's the thing, and I know that we can think, okay, yeah. I think for some it raises anxiety, and so that can be seen as an unfavorable, because that is that behavior, or that, the mental effects of that, of what happens to the body. It elicits more and more problems. So it can be problematic. So they're looking at it from the lens of, you want to be cognizant of the deadlines, but not, I'm worried, or, just remaining knowing like, okay, I know lesson plans are due this Thursday at 6, but at Wednesday night at 9 o'clock is not the time for me to begin thinking about you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's ever evolving. So, yeah. In this context, I would look at it as, you want to be cognizant. You don't want to be worried and on
aware,
edge.
but not
Yeah,
stressed.
that's it. Yeah. So if you turn that over, you'll then see what your next steps are. It gives you, just for a later time, because we'll move forward, but it'll give you those specific items that you did not score perhaps where you thought you might want to, or where you're really aspiring to be, in those areas of known growth or needed growth that you are already knowing, based off the self-assessment, and even before the self-assessment. Utilize those specific areas. They're on a couple of pages there. They just provide you with some additional assurance, and we're going to get into that. But I felt like, too, as we're setting the stage for where we're headed, you always want to begin with the end in mind. So you want to know where you are, and then being able to then plan and adjust and develop strategy according to that. So we've just now kind of assessed our strength. So make note of that as we continue moving forward. So again, I said that we're going to have 6 best practices. And they are, I've taken, and I love this, it really comes to me in this way when whatever I'm getting ready to do, I like to utilize those acronyms and using words as an acronym to provide you with a mnemonic device. Basically, that's just saying a quick way to reference a lot of information while using just one word. So we're going to take the word manage, because a part of what we're doing with time management organization, we want to be able to manage. Okay, so many competing schedules, so many things that we have to do. And so what better way than to take the word manage, and we'll break all of these down into further refinements so that you walk away with strategy for each. But for M in manage, we're going to make time for self. Okay, I think we've all said that. We're hearing a lot about self-care and all of that. We even talk about that even when working with students, that they're taking care of self. The A, achievable scheduling. It's one thing to have so many things on your schedule, but you also, when we're thinking about SMART goals, when we're thinking about, where we needing to be, pacing calendars and all of that, we must remain cognizant of making sure that we're going to really be able to achieve what we're scheduling ourselves to do and what we're scheduling for. The N, no room for distractors. Now, that can kind of be seen as, well, that's inevitable. There's always going to be. There's a difference between distractors and distractions, okay? And so we're going to talk about that, because there is a distinct difference. A, articulate your limits. That's something that some people naturally are. They're always committed to, they're yes, everything, yeah, I can do it. But then in hindsight, are we effective in all of our commitments? We can overcommit. So just articulating your limits and how to do that in a professional way that's also not face-threatening to your team, okay? The G, Get organized regularly. What's that regular check-in process look like for you each day, really, or each week, each month? What are some of those practices and behaviors that you began or that you currently are doing so that you are remaining organized at all times? And then E, like I said, it's inevitable. Expect the unexpected. Okay? How do you adapt when plans change at the last minute? You might have had that great lesson, Mr. Cadler, that you spent some time, you just knew students were going to be engaged and everything, but then 15 minutes into the lesson, it's just going south. You've got a lot of talking going forward. Everybody's not engaged. It's just kind of like it's turning into a nightmare. How do you monitor and adjust? Do we throw in the towel and just say, or do we suffer through it, or do we have something already readily available? How do we respond in that moment? Because when we're not ready for that, that's when it does occur. So just thinking about that. So again, manage. M, make time for self. A, achievable scheduling. N, no room for distractors. A, articulate your limits. G, get organized regularly. And E, expect the unexpected. Okay. M, make time for self. So thinking about and take a moment to think about the implementation moment, and that's the question of this. What ways can you engage in self-care in the upcoming school year? So when I talk about making time for self-care, we're looking at work-life balance. I know that there's grading. I know that there's practices. I know that there are so many there's coaches meetings, there are faculty meetings, there are, our children's meetings that they have, spouse things, engagements, whatever it might be. We have church obligations, so many things. Are we ensuring that there are some boundaries that are set? Do we just say it? Or do we actually engage and are intentional about the work-life balance? Do we just pack up everything to take it home and unfold everything on the dining room table? Or do we get to a certain place, pack some things up, if time permits when we get home, then we engage in some of those items once we've prioritized and we know that there's a couple of tasks that are going to be fundamental, they're number one on the list and have a deadline, that we may spend a little bit of time, but are we going and having a moment each day to disconnect? Are we at ourselves, are we able to give anything when we come home to our family? Are we answering emails at the dinner table? Are we taking phone calls late into the night? Sometimes, again, with E, when we get to that, expect the unexpected, but is that a daily thing? And there is a difference.
You have to separate yourself.
You have to separate yourself. Because you'll look up and those that force of strength within the family, they're gone. If kids are grown up, moved on, or whatever it might be, you'll look back and then there won't be that sense of, fullness that one would have by taking regular time to care for self. Even throughout the day, do you take a moment to just take a breather? I know we can't wait till plan time comes, but sometimes even in the midst of, maybe it's driving to work, maybe it's, during your lunchtime, whatever it is, maybe I know we have Apple Play music and all of those things, like, whether we are, just listening to some quiet music with our eyes closed and we're just kind of reflecting, okay? Just taking some deep breaths, go and get a drink of water, just, maybe going out, breathing in some fresh air, after an intense morning. You had a lot of things going, whether things went well or not, but engaging in that self-care. Because you've got to do that. It's priceless, and I'm preaching to the choir when I'm saying that to myself. You've got to take time for self. It is very, very important. I have tomorrow there for a reason, and it's got 3 periods following, because ultimately tomorrow will be there. whatever didn't get done today, there, now I know the other piece of that, again, every day is life is a gift. But I will say, there's always tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. Because at the end of the day, if you have gone and have really just, continued to beat yourself down working late into the night, you might even wake up and not be physically able to go into work the next day. Then everything that you have put in, planned for, stayed up all night and everything else, did that pay off and work out well for you? You will be the one to answer that question. I can't answer that for you. But I will say, as far as we're thinking about, you want to remain cognizant from day one. Tomorrow's evening, I know we've got parent-teacher, welcome in, not parent-teacher conference, I'm rushing the year already, but, open house, we've got that going. But then, too, do we know what that first day is going to look like for us? I know everything's going to be, it's first day coming in, take Thursday and Friday, but by that next Monday, begin having that plan in place, because that's going to be that first full week. And how we start, it's a clear indicator of how we're going to be. If we start frazzled and go in there and just, that's going to be, because then we begin to reinforce that behavior every day that we get in, and we follow through in those same manners, and we respond to things in those same manners. And we can say, oh, yeah, I'm going to try it next Monday. Oh, I'm going to try it next Monday. We look up, we're halfway through the year. Then we start in January. Oh, I want to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That works for 2 weeks. By February, that's a whole nother thing. Oh, it's always next year. But the time, again, you want to be your best self. A, achievable. I'm not sure why the screen is doing that, but it's doing its own thing. So, realistic expectations, okay? I know we've got so many things that are pressing. And Coach Falk, if you will pass out to everyone that second. Yes, I have a couple of documents we're going to kind of dig into because I didn't know if we had elementary or secondary, but I think we have secondary today, so we'll open up secondary. But ultimately, too, are we setting a plan that is realistic? Do we know, following the anatomy of a lesson, do we know how much time we're leaving from the beginning of class with that, kind of class starter to the end of class when we're doing a wrap-up activity? Do we have everything planned out? Are we thinking about that even when we're in the aspect of putting lessons together? Are we taking into account everything that, again, is going to be presented to us? Do we know if we're doing a group activity? Do we already have groups identified and ready to go? Or are we going to allow students to go ahead and decide for themselves? Well, that has pros and cons. So we know how that's going to work going into it. Okay? So when I look at that, I'm going to pull up the secondary. It'll come open. Well. Nothing like a good challenge.
Are you logged into the TV?
No.
You're just sharing your screen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you did share from the screen, you have to open the link as a different tab, like on your own.
Oh, okay.
So like search it in your drive.
Oh. Well, okay. Then for the concept of time, let's do this. I'll take one. Let's turn to in the packet that you were given, let's turn to the gradual release plan, the sample high school plan, and let's look at the Spanish 1. And so this is a way, and I know that many of you probably have had Literacy First training probably for years, but no matter what, because I know even within, with Coach Falk, Coach Dawkins, I know that with lessons that go out in the physical education department that, again, you still have your objectives. You still have, everything mapped out. And when you have that plan in place, it's not meant simply just to turn in to your administrator. It's for you. So it should be live. having it out. Even throughout the lesson, perhaps you didn't get what you wanted to have completed for that portion. If you're working maybe on a project-based learning unit, and what you assigned for day 2 and 3 looks like they're not going to meet that deadline, looks like it's going to take a couple of extra days, you're making note to yourself, making those notes, because then if you're going into that next year, it may not necessarily feel like it's a lot of, help to you right in the moment. But when you're planning for that in the next year, you're able to monitor and adjust and make some refinement. But if you don't have those notes or have your lesson plans, or if you don't look at it anymore after you've submitted them, we think we check that off the list, out of sight, out of mind. No, it's a living document. Let it be out. Massage that. Go ahead and add to that so that you have something, you have feedback for yourself. That's going to help you when you're going in from year to year. Now, maybe you're teaching something different, but if you're also mentoring perhaps, or someone else that's coming in new, maybe they're emergency certified or whatever it might be, you can share some of those things that you've experienced with them, perhaps when those opportunities arrive and present themselves. And again, balancing your method. I want to focus on the implementation moment of how might you revise your scheduling techniques to ensure that you achieve at the highest level in your role this year. Remember, we take the years, and elementary looks at it more every 9 weeks. I know secondary looks at it as a semester time, but you also have what's considered the midterm, which is in the middle of that 16-week semester. And so just thinking about, too, what's going to be the best way to think about, an achievable plan. Have that plan in place. Also, when we're looking at balancing the method, you'll see there it says electronic calendar, stationary calendar, or phone. Figure out what works best for you. Coach Dawkins may prefer to utilize his iPhone. I may I have a agenda paper and pen right there. And then I also have the online calendar. The only thing is I can say, and I'm just going to use my own errors as, our own faults or weaknesses, is sometimes I look at the electronic and don't look what's written down because I was on the phone when I did it and didn't type it in. So then they kind of, they're competing. Oh, well, you wrote it down. Yeah, I wrote it down, but it wasn't in the electronic calendar. So that's the thing. Find what works and what's comfortable for you. What works for Mr. Cadler may not work for me. What works for Coach Falk, it might not work for me. But knowing that, too, whatever you're utilizing, make sure that that's your go-to. Okay, but then also have a backup. Yes, the electronic, technology is fantastic, but then in the absence of being able to open that up and everything else like that, do you have a couple of ways that you can access information? Okay, even with today, we've got to be able to, we've got old school, we've got paper, because it would take me a minute to get all of that going, and in respect to your time, we have another option to be able to monitor and adjust. And it didn't come to me until just now. I had this for y'all thinking that you'd have something to walk away with, when in fact we're actually looking at this right now in absence of being able to use it right there on the screen, okay? But you can see through this lesson plan, it's detailed. I'm sure yours is the same, but just knowing that all of those opportunities for areas of when your time is as the teacher providing or educator providing the instruction, when it's time for you all to work, when you're releasing them, getting them ready to go into independent mode, all of those things are mapped out for you. And that's how detailed you want to be. Yes, it takes a lot of time on the front end, but you'll be so glad and so thankful. I remember when I was in the classroom, of being able to look at taking 1 year. I would always take 1 year and the year before and look, to see the progression, to see what's working, what's not, and that's how you continue to further, just make a stronger impact each year. If this specific project that you thought was going to be fantastic doesn't work, well then versus, forcing it, if by 2 years it's not then let's find something else. You know what I mean? I think we have to also be cognizant of who, of who's sitting in front of us, and really refining it so that it's a way that's meaningful for them. Boy, I tell you, this is not gonna, well, hold on a second. Let's do this. Okay, let's do this. We'll do this way.
If you hit those three dots, is there a enter full screen thing?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Now I don't know what happened. Mm,
Here, I'm here.
help me out.
Bring it back down.
Okay.
And then it might just be cutting it off because that has to come down.
Okay.
But you should be good to go now.
Yeah. I'm gonna roll.
Okay. All right, now we're ready for Ian. No room for distractors. Here we go. All right. and what I've got, some distractors, right? So balanced daily service. I can't stress this enough to you about balance. Okay. And so as we talked about balance with work-life balance, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. You see me on it right now, and it's consuming time, and that's technology. Okay. We are in a technologically driven society. I get it. Okay. But I think too, when we're talking about distractors, that's one of the biggest distractors that we have from us being in tune in the moment. We miss a lot of opportunities to engage in face-to-face interaction, to really hear a person, to really listen to our students or whatever it might be. I know that emergencies come, and this is a great way to be engaged, and we can take notes on our phones, we can do all of that, but I will say it is a huge waste of time, okay, that we really can't get back. I know that it is tempting to engage and look down those scrolls of Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or all of those things, and I'm not saying I'm against all of that. I'm just saying this. Everything has to be done in balance. We know that, and we can look at wherever we go. You go to the barber shop, people don't hold their head straight anymore because they got their phone and trying to get their hair cut at the same time. The dentist's office puts signs up now because they even have screens now for when they lay you back to clean your teeth, so it's something to preoccupy. I mean, everywhere you go, like, because it's either that or the phone. Then your phone's getting wet from the water, from the Sprite. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, it's just, you think about those things, or you go and you're ready to check out. We know how annoying that can be when a person is needing to pay, and it's not really, it's all computerized now anyway, for the most part, but still, people are on their phones to the point that it's impeding other people's opportunities to do what they need to do. And so we want to make sure that we have balance with that, because that will deter us from being effective like we're really wanting to. So kind of think about too, has technology, especially over the last 2 years, has it caused a great challenge to your productivity? That's something that you would know. Just think about that. If you look at perhaps the dynamics of the dinner table, and I take that for example, is everyone sitting with their device, or are devices banned from the table? Being that we're going to in tune to this moment, that's a great start, Or when you're coming in, apply it to the daily role here. We have a PLC meeting coming up on Early Release Wednesday. How will we spend that time together? Are we going to set some norms for our PLC, stating that, all our phones are gonna, we're gonna face them down if somebody needs us, whatever, we'll take it in a, in an urgent or emergency situation. But other than that, we're not in tune to our phones. Also, too, talk time. Thinking about, too, how much of our day do we say, okay, I'm not going to visit the teacher's lounge today. I'm not going to be able to engage in any, I got to get this going. I don't need, hi, how you doing? I don't really want to hear right now. I got this to do. I've got that to do. So I will say, again, you want balance with that, too, because you do want to have the opportunity to build relationships with your team. But no, we got a 50-minute plan period. Know that, too, you've got this due, that you got that due. You know that you've got to have balance to be prepared to be in tune and be yourself at home for who needs you, your family. But at the same time, too, you don't want to seem off-putting or, standoffish or all of that. How to balance that? I mean, just simply put, I've got a lot I got to do today. We're going to have to, touch base later. And just doing it in an easy, professional way. but speaking your truth, that's going to help you in the long run. Because I can honestly say it never failed that I think, oh yeah, going to lunch, everybody was sitting in, this, that, and the other. And I'm not saying don't, but just knowing, being cognizant of that. It may not be that every day you're able to do a full lunch and plan with, you know what I mean? It may be some time where you got your task force and you got to work through those things. And definitely being engaged. So it's just, again, it's balance with that. And that's where it's got to be your personality, because it's going to always shine through. But you know what works for you. And so by being able to monitor and adjust, let's begin thinking about what are some ways that I can reduce some of my distractors, okay? And then when I say that, balanced daily service, again, when you look at get up in the morning after whatever your morning routine is, I would begin with even just taking a moment for yourself before you look at the phone, before before you hit snooze. I hear I was reading some research, just turn that off and go on and get up. It's no need in the 5 minutes, it turns into a nightmare. So just turn it off and get up. And get up. And so, but nevertheless, just thinking about too, taking a moment, think about the day. Access whatever whatever you need to access to know what your calendar is. Kind of look for, perhaps think in your mind, be prepared for some of those things that might be unexpected, what may go, not how we have it planned, or just make sure that you're always in tune to know that I might need to be ready to readjust at any given moment. Okay, but balance is key. In order to reduce and maximize your time, you're going to have to reduce some of those distractors. And I've learned that the hard way, because people are calling, they'll call, and then they'll you've got these things that you needed to do, and it was just being later and later in the evening, and it's like I don't have any energy left for family. I mean, it's just I'm just drained because of so many things. And so you've got to begin to set those parameters and make sure that you have your non-negotiables. I know we hear about them a lot, but it's not something to frown upon. It's just something to help build productivity, and it's going to help you in the long run.
And we have to respect other people's parameters as well.
Yeah.
As teachers, it's easy just to, that they're on plan, so let's just go in and maybe they're sitting in the dark trying to, act like they're not in their room because they need time to themselves, and sometimes we just walk in and take that time for ourselves, so we got to respect that in other people as well.
Especially here, because we don't all have rooms for plan since we're short rooms. So being in the hallway, you're an easy target to kind of just go and chat to someone.
And I think, too, sometimes in that moment of silence, I think, too, we can kind of tell as communicators, because of what we do, it requires so much. So just being cognizant of those times and behaviors. If I see Coach Dawkins and he looks like he's thinking about something, or just, we might just, or what have you, it may not be the opportunity for me to come and unleash and say what happened in third hour. Like that can shot everything that he was, you know what I mean? Because now that's interrupted his time, you know what I mean? Now, if we meet eyes and start engaging in conversation, then that's fine. But knowing that too, just begin to just be cognizant of that, because it may be that someone is in here reflecting and do not want to be, broken from that time, because it's critical. It's critical. Mental health is key. So let's go back to, now my letters are something else now since they're gone. Worked hard on this too. All right. Now let's go with the A.
It's just be expecting the unexpected.
Thank you.
Just giving us an example.
Exactly. I mean, this whole time has been, right? Yeah.
I'll make sure it's fixed by the next
Okay, no worries. Thank you. All right. Articulate your limits. Okay? Articulate your limits. What do you mean by that? I mean that we can't do everything all day and go, and overcommit. And I have an accountability, I've got someone that is a great friend that, I'll be running some things that they says, okay, now how are you doing? How? And I go, yeah, it is. And you got to think about it too. At the end of the day, you've got to be able to replenish yourself. You don't want to overcommit to the point that you're not effective in what you're really seeking to do. In order to go to the next level, you've got to have balance. And you've got to have balance in all areas. And that's something that you've got to have strategy, and that you've got to consistently be aware that I'm going to have to adjust, and I'm going to have to refine some things to ensure that I have that balance. A respectful decline. just as we said, I know that it's probably something uncomfortable for some. You know, you're always wanting to make sure that everybody's pleased and doing well. But if you don't, you're really doing a disservice to yourself. Okay? And you know, if you're coming to me consistently, okay, I need this, I'm needing this, I'm needing this, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not gonna be able to. I've got to get this, this, and this done. You know, just a quick way. I'm honestly not gonna be able to. You know, and when you add that level of some facial expression with it, you know, a little concern with it, have that look like I'm really not going to be, you know, it helps versus I'm not going to be able to do that. Like, do it yourself, you know, and what I'm not saying that, no, but I'm just saying, again, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I really don't think that I'm going to be able to do that. You know, I know that so many times, you know, people might decide, oh, well, and because of, you know, we're here all day, but like at colleges and things, it's a little bit different. Like, oh, we're going to go to lunch, or oh, we're going to go, you know, if you've got something that you're working on, it's okay. You know, it's okay. I'm going to have to pass today. I've got to do, you know, I've got a project that I've got to complete, you know, or something like that. And so just think about those things as we're talking about a respectful decline.
How many me times do you think a person should have?
How many me times?
4 a day.
4 a day?
I'm going to be honest with you, Coach Douglas. I think it's going to relate to knowing yourself and knowing that because on certain days, I feel like at any point in every day, you should have time to in tune to self. I would say definitely at the start of your day and definitely at the end. But sometimes throughout the day, almost like how they say you're supposed to eat 5 or 6 times, just kind of when you're refueling your body even, taking a moment to yourself, whatever that is for you, whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, whether it's just closing your eyes, you know, breathe definitely. But I mean, whatever it is, like, you know, take that time because it's gonna really require everyone being in tune to themselves. I know for me, I start the morning. You know, I've got my morning routine, I've got my night routine, and sometimes now being cognizant going into this year is taking time throughout the day. Because there's something that I don't do, it's just go run out, go run in, you know, that it's start line, finish line, and that you know, you just got to think about the tortoise and the hare, you know what I mean? You know, it's kind of, it's on that. But that's a good thought process to be in. How many is appropriate for one in a day?
You know, I was thinking about you saying listen to your body.
Yes.
And coming from a job where I worked all the time, our bodies are amazing and they will do just about anything we want them to do. Mm-hmm. But when you listen to your body and you go, your body is a functioning system that can get backed up. And you see a lot of overworked, stressed out people who their system is just came to a stop, and that will get you sick fast.
Yes.
And that's just something that coming from insurance, I worked 16 hours a day and I came home and did all that until the pandemic helped me. Like none of that mattered.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was able to rearrange it then. But just seeing what I pushed my body to do is kind of sad.
It is.
You know?
And that's what
I aged myself.
Well, and that's the thing. We don't want to become to a point where we're not good for those who love and care for. I mean, definitely, you know, again, we love what we do, you know, and I know that it loves us as well, but we also have to make sure that there's boundaries. You gotta, and you cannot consistently pour out and never refuel. You know, take the time. It may be spending that moment to get that mid-morning snack in. You know, maybe it's that apple you need during plan time. You know, maybe you need your banana in the afternoon, whatever it is. Take that opportunity, and the time might shift just because life shifts sometimes, but to make a consistent effort and start small. I'm not saying to walk out of here, go to Office Depot, buy an overpriced planner, you know, or anything else like that, you know, going, you know, get all these fancy, you know, and I got to do this, this, and this, and this. It's just find one thing and begin to work and refine that one behavior.
So how do you encourage us, because like right now, especially with teacher shortages and stuff, we don't always get our plan.
Yeah.
So we may be going all day throughout the work day, just going.
Yeah.
So how do you encourage us to times like that.
So I would say this, we've had conversations recently with our negotiations team. I sit on the district side and then with MEA, and I will say that, you know, it is the expectation that administrators are remaining cognizant of those of plan time, to know that teachers are needing that opportunity. I know with, you know, staffing shortages and things of that nature, if that is the last resort and that becomes a consistent pattern, you may have to find where you've got to say to a team member or whatever it is, or an assistant or someone, I need 5 minutes. Can somebody come relieve me? Okay. You've got to advocate for yourself. Okay. I'm needing someone to come down, whatever it might be. You know, an additional team member who is not, you know, currently whatever. Take you 5 minutes. You got to. You have to. Okay. 5 minutes makes a world of difference, but you have to advocate for yourself. You do.
I think that also something to be said about like the emotional weight of the job. Is that I think a lot of people, when they say you can't turn off being a teacher,
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, well, time-wise you can, but emotionally you can't. So I think even here it's like setting the boundaries for that emotional support that you're going to have for students.
Yeah.
Because there are going to be students that come up to you, want to tell you their entire life story, and you're like, I love you, I see you, but I can't hear this.
Yeah.
Or I love you, I see you, let's go get you some help.
Yeah.
And those things I think are important. There's this book called The Body Keeps the Score, if you haven't read it, where it talks about how the body harnesses emotions and where it's held in the body.
Yeah.
And how your body can react with trauma triggers that you've had from when you were younger. And you're like, why is my stomach hurting? Or why is my chest hurting? Or any of these things, and it's your stomach holds sadness, or your chest harnesses anxiety. And those things come up a lot with kids, and even setting those boundaries of, hey, I can't handle any more emotional turmoil right now. I gotta take a step.
Yeah. To add to that, men carry stress in your shoulders. Women carry stress in our very lower back. So if you're hurting there,
Well, what's this?
that is stress too.
Yeah, we won't even go there, but that cortisol is definitely it's not in here, but so I got you. So and what everyone said is great, because again, like I said, it's the back and forth dialogue is what really helps us, you know, when we're thinking about what our next steps are. So think about this, the implementation moment. Do you reserve time for yourself at a certain point in the day or at the end of each day? If not, how can you start doing that this year? How can you start doing that personally this year? What is one thing that you can leave making a commitment, knowing today this is something that I'm going to honestly commit to engaging in this upcoming year? Because I guarantee you, starting that August 17th, when you look at May, when we get out of school, you will have begun to see you feel a lot different, you know, because the year is going to bring about challenge. It's going to have some victories, yes, but we also have to remain cognizant that there are going to be some challenges that we all have to overcome and face. And regularly engaging in, you know, having that time for self and maintaining balance, all of that is going to be critical in that moment. Okay? So here we go to G. Get organized regularly. What might your cell phone policy be for your classroom, and how will students know your expectations? So in this document here, go back to your self-assessment stapled packet and turn to the page after next steps. Look at the document best practices. It's got the Muskogee heading, documentation best practices. Okay. So what I did, elementary, secondary, really whatever respective role you serve, even with athletics, you want to be definitely mindful of some of these things. And so when I say document, that's what I mean. From day one, you want to have a running record ready, just so that you can jot notes in. It may be Yes, I know it might look like you're texting, but whatever your school policy is, far as teachers and their cell phones or whatever it might be, you want to be sure that you've documented all of the things that are necessary. I gave some of the great examples of things that you want to have that documentation of, and we'll just kind of talk through those things. Parent meetings. Again, we know that our students, we are very hopeful that they're going to come in knowing what expectations are, but know that too, before parent-teacher conference, any of that, if there's parent meetings or contact that's being had, you want to document those things. You want to make you a contact log. Maybe your school has one that you all utilize, but you want to have one specific for you and your classes, okay? Academic interventions with students. Perhaps there's some special education testing that is getting ready to go forward, and you're wanting to make sure that you are maintaining the notes of those best practices and things that you're implementing so that you have that and can refer back to that. So it's very critical to have those documentations and the interventions that you're providing for students available for when they're needed when it comes time to submit the paperwork for testing. And then also student progress monitoring. We all know about our student data. I'm sure we have data meetings where we're talking about, student data, looking at what are the areas of growth, what have our students mastered, where are they currently at, how will we know, what are we going to fine tune or maybe reintroduce in a different way collectively. That's when those types of conversations, you want to have your notes, you want to have walk away points to go back in and to implement into the classroom. And so I say definitely having student monitoring data, all of that readily available, and have that and keep it updated. And then also within the professional learning communities, we're going to start that back this year. So within a PLC, knowing that too, you want to maintain your notebook perhaps of those types of things, that you have all of those documents readily available so that you can then be able to refer back to them whenever you're needing to. TLE. Has everyone been now into the OKTLE? You know how that works and all of that. So that's a new process and protocol. But everything that you sign, you want to make sure that you have a printed hard copy of that as well. Because sometimes glitches can occur. You can log in and your evaluation's perhaps not there from the previous year, whatever. We've had a lot. And on the tech side, it never hurts to have the old school pen and paper, for you see that that's what's helping us today. And then also some of the teacher certification requirements. Is anyone E-certified in here right now? Strategies, a lot of things that you're needing to complete. And so you're wanting to know, and I'm going to speak to E-certified specifically. The state issues you a letter indicating what you need to certify, what you need to complete a standard certification, okay, or which would be a standard alternative now. And so with that in mind, you want to be able to know what your timelines are and what your pathway is, what tests you need to take based on when they do a degree audit, meaning that they look at the degree that in the college that you went to, they look to see what classes you attended, and then they're able to say, this is the area that you can certify in first, okay? You can add additional areas, but depending upon what the state is indicating that you need to certify, that's going to then, because the OGAT has been taken away, but they still have the OSAT, which is your Oklahoma Subject Area Test. You'll need to know when those dates are. You can reach out to me via email. I can get that information for you and work with you if you need help with that. There'll be a lot of district support moving forward in that direction to help with the completion of that. And so also knowing that too, there's an additional piece called the PPAT, which is kind of like a portfolio where you'll submit artifacts to that talks about your teaching and various things like that, but you won't have to worry with that this year, but you'll definitely want to have taken and passed that OSAT exam in your first year, okay? Yes.
So do we have like a direct contact person for that to keep up with that sort of thing, or a site, or is that down the road?
So it's multifaceted in the aspect of this. whoever your evaluating administrator is, are you here?
Mhm.
You're here, okay, so whoever your evaluating administrator is also within the HR director as well. So they'll be collaborating together. You'll also be receiving some information about, like on the days that we have PLCs, you'll want to reserve an additional hour because there will be some additional supports that are given on those days as well, for all, because we have quite a few, for as emergency certified educators, and so we want to make sure. And then also you can reach out to me as well. So I supported our coaches last year, and so we had about 9 or 10 coaches, and so we were all together and had a great time. You were there with me. So, definitely to know that we're just unpack some things and set you up again with best practices to be successful on those exams. So, yeah. So then also too, procedures are key. Do you have the first day? Do you already know, are our students going to be knowing what the expectation is for your classroom? When I asked the question about the implementation policy, do you know what you're gonna do with cell phones?
Yeah, they're not allowed at our building.
Okay.
They gotta stay in their pocket and turn off.
Okay.
I don't take them away from them, but they'll give them to me when they walk in, and then we sit them on the table. When the class is over, you can take them.
And what's the policy at Cherokee? Are you supposed to do it? Are you supposed to have a cell phone with you?
Me? I mean,
No,
if it-
not you,
Oh,
the scholars. Are they supposed to have the cell phone?
No.
We're clear about the expectations, and you answered correctly. And so the thing is, you gotta, everything has to be articulated. Tomorrow, it has been expected that, we're having parent meetings to talk about handbooks, we're talking about protocols, processes, and I'll just say, not a mention to brag or anything, but it's abundantly clear. You come tomorrow, you get all of the documents for Cherokee, because this is what's upheld, regardless to, I didn't know, I didn't any of that. It was communicated via video, okay, that was sent out through Notify, okay, because you want to document all of the ways that if you've enrolled, your phone number is in. You were given the message that gives you live access to the video that talks about the expectations. You get it printed, okay, and then it's also verbalized at open house. That's 3 opportunities. Those are all documented. It's not a problem. Whether you feel like you agree with it or not, it's still going to be upheld, whatever the decision is, because this is what has been done and this is what is documented, okay? Procedures for everything. You can't over procedure it. You want to have a procedure for everything. How you turn in work. We don't come up here and just throw stuff and just, what I mean? How does work look when it's complete? Do you want the name, date, and block in the up right-hand corner? Or name, we had blocks when I was ago, but name, date, and hour at the top right-hand corner? Or, are we taking, as far as, you couldn't turn in paper that was ripped with them little 15,000 little, you have to have that either taken off or something. You turn that in. I've gone to the trash can several times. I say, you turn in trash, this is where it goes. It went right in the trash. We're going to follow the procedures, flat out. Flat out. If I can't read it, I'm not getting out a magnifying glass. I wear contacts, and I'm not putting nothing else on my eyes, so it's trash. You got to write legibly. If it's not in a complete sentence, you can do text talk, but it's going to talk to the trash because it's not going to talk about reading. Okay? So, again, procedures are key. Follow through is a must. You have to have all of that. It may seem like, no, you got to have it. You just got to have it. Document those things. When it gets to be too much, we spend a lot of time, and this is kind of going into a little bit of where we're headed. I know you've heard the talk about the discipline matrix being refined and all of that and things like that. All of those in-class refocus, bless you, all of those in-class refocuses and things that you're doing with behavior, make sure you have those items documented, because you're going to need that when you come ready for, going into when you're taking stuff to the next step, or when you need to contact an administrator about a student's behavior, okay? And then the final E. Yes. Expect the unexpected. The one element that I will say here is that having flexibility is like a priceless asset, no matter what, okay? The ability to monitor and adjust, I'm sure you know that from the TLE, as it's one of the indicators. But we do that every single day. We must do that. We should even do that as an individual. Monitor and adjust. How did the day go? how did this lesson go? How did this meeting go? Okay, what am I going to do if presented with this again? How will I respond? Okay, all of those things. Be in that consistent mindset, and that's going to continue to help you to grow, whether it's your first year or whether it's your 10th or 11th year or 20th year. We're always monitoring and adjusting. Preparing for an absence ahead of time. I can't stress it enough. You never know when you're going to be out. You may just wake up and you do not think you cannot move. Okay? You want to be able to have a plan in place, because just as strong as we are, again, when we're not able to be that team player for your team has to scramble. They have to then add additional stress to provide for your absence, okay? And so then you got to think about the relational trust. Think about all of those things and the preparedness. So go ahead and make a couple of days where you have everything ready to go, that it's review, that it is, something that is very self-explanatory for whoever it might be. And we would hope it's a sub and not, Yeah. So you don't have to call for 5 minutes, you get a full plan. Right, I get it. Yes. So but those are things to be aware of. Again, that's gonna then only help. So think about the implementation moment. When you think about planning for the unexpected in education, what comes to mind in regards to needing to be absent from the building? Think about what your procedures are and know that it might not be just right because it's not you again in that classroom for that day. But what is the plan that's going to be in place? So what I have before you is a self-reflection tool. We won't have really time for it today, but I would hope that later on you would use that and refer back to it. It's the back page in that packet. And I also have that weekly educator task force. That's just the way that I took the week at a glance, and I took it from Cherokee, what is expected of classroom educators and the days and times that things are due. That way, if you don't have one at your school site, you can also utilize that and plug yours in that's replicatory to your role of service, and then be able to use that as a further management tool that way. So you kind of have your weekly checklist, so make sure that you're on top and on the ball for everything. So just look at that. And then on that back page is that self-reflection tool. We've taken every characteristic that we talked about today, MANAGE, and we broke it down. So think about that in this upcoming day. I believe you'll be getting a survey. I hope I did not bore you for this entire time. And so with that in mind, please fill that out and provide feedback. And so definitely, if I talk too much, just definitely say you talked entirely too much and it was very boring and I learned nothing. So if that's how you feel, I certainly hope not. But again, please fill that out. It just helps us to continue to provide you with what you need because we want to ensure that you have a phenomenal year. All right? Are there any kind of closing questions that anyone has? I know we engaged in great dialogue, so we're right at about time. So are there